Microphone's not in my face or any of that kind of stuff. Not blocking me.
Nope.
Okay. Deep breath, right?
No. Burp. Get the burp out of the way. I ate something this morning and I was like, it made me a little burpy, and I was like, don't do that on. I wouldn't believe Kim Lovely burps.
I do. My theory is what? As far as burping, what is my...
It's better to come out
than stuck in. Yeah. Same with toots, right? Better out than in.
Toots.
Or as we used to call them in my house, fartlets.
My kids call them boopers, and I don't even remember where that came
Boopers?
from. Boopers?
Welcome to Fated to Fabulous, the podcast for women who know that midlife is not the end. It's the beginning of something bold. I'm Kim Lovely, and I'm here with Vicki Kirby. We're here to talk to you about health, hormones, confidence, and joy. Midlife isn't about fading away. It's about stepping into your power and shining brighter than ever. Let's get into it. Hi, ladies. It's Vicki and Kim coming to you with Fated to Fabulous. Today's topic is one that can be touchy. It's about body image, sense of self, how we feel about ourselves and specifically our bodies, and perhaps how that may change in midlife. And my hope is that we will not only talk about why it happens, but how do we get from a place of a negative narrative to a positive narrative? Because I firmly believe that it's not just sort of a woo-woo. It literally impacts your mental health and how you show up in the world. So it's really important.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal, especially what we see in our practice is taking care of women. Kim, what would you say is, because you talk to women, you coach women, and if women are seeking you out in a nutrition practice, what are they often looking for?
Weight loss.
Weight loss, right? So then you're turning on your coach hat most of the time. Why do you think it's so common for women in midlife in particular to feel unhappy in their bodies?
So, two parts. Number one, I think women have a history of worrying about appearance, and we'll dig more into sort of the cultural norms behind that. So I think there's some history. And then when menopause happens and we see shifts in metabolism, in the place in which bodies hold weight, in the gaining of weight without your permission, right? In changes in skin, changes in hair, changes in libido, all of those things, I think, contribute to a sense of my body's betraying me. And if I could just get a handle on all of these things that are happening, I could be happy, right? So I think midlife definitely contributes to a negative sense of self. I also think that our media, our social life is not pro-aging. It's more like maintain youth at all costs. And, we've sort of talked about that before, and I think everybody should do what works best for them. But it's like we have this expectation that we're going to behave like women who have good common sense and historical knowledge and all of that stuff, yet do it in a body that might be not consistent with where we are in life, if that makes any sense. I think it's a combination of what we've dragged with us from earlier life and also just these changes to the body, which are happening without our permission. Not sure if that answers. You want to dig deeper?
There's so much. I mean, we could probably do this one for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think we could have on like a million guests, right? Yeah. All the women that we see. And my heart breaks so often in my practice. And I try to look at like, where does some of this come from? I think like, I'm going to speak to this personally.
Please.
So I think, I have women who come to me all the time, and they're struggling with self-worth and body image. And here I am, 52 years old, and I've, done so much work and worked on it for myself and still find myself in the struggle. That's our little secret behind closed doors, is that Kim and I are still women and we still struggle. But you think about how deep the layers are that brought us to this place. So I always say, dig in, right? Where did this start? And so for so many of us, right, I can think for myself, growing up hearing a minute on the lips, a lifetime on the hips from my stepmother, while my father's go-to insult for women was always about their bodies, including my own. So you're young, and the first sense you're getting is that your body is somehow wrong. And then, then it gives you this like complex, weird relationship with food. And then you go off in the real world, right? Where every woman is trying to compare themselves to everybody else, always trying to be in a smaller body. So you find yourself in this place. And plus, our generation, heaps and heaps of trauma, right? Tossed on with mothers, and this is not to throw our mothers under the bus, but good God, those women were always on diets, right?
It was normal.
Yeah, like back in the 50s, you've got the 50s housewife, right? She was so trim. Yeah, she was on speed and Quaaludes, okay, to get through. Yeah. And then you have our generation where it was like, you can be the 50s housewife and have it all, and you can have the career and all the things. And we were doing all of this, all while trying to be looking good, for the male gaze. And so, it's so complicated. There's so many layers to it, but I hate how much room it takes up in so many women's brains.
Yep. So as you were talking, I thought about, I do see women who have, very negative sense of self.
Yeah.
Like you said, takes up way too much real estate in their brain. And we are not a Rolodex. We're a file drawer. Yeah. So if we fill our file drawer with negative, there's not much left for positive.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I think too, we have like buried memories in the file drawer too, right? So something may happen in current day and we overreact or we over perseverate about it. We stand on the scale at the OBGYN's office with our boots and our winter coats on, and we know that that's not our weight, right? This was my example the other day.
Yeah.
They're like, I went in to get my weight checked and said, should I take my boots off? Now you're fine. So I had winter boots, winter coat, all my clothes on, stepping on the scale. I'm going, this isn't relevant. Why are we even doing this other than to traumatize Kim Lovely? There's no value.
None.
And so
because most of us do what? Naked, first thing in the morning, after you pooped,
after you poop. Yeah. So
earrings off.
But our society is still caught on this garbage. They're just doing it to check the box and they're not realizing. So, I've done some coaching and yes, I have my own issues and the number was a horrible number, but I also was able to say, it's your boots and your coat and whatever.
Can I put you on the spot?
Please.
Okay. So I've only known you to be Kim Lovely, who, in your own words from this morning, loves it when your legs are in pain from your workout. Okay, so you are like totally like the committed, love your exercise, always fit, and only known you in a small, fit body. What's your story? Because I know that you still struggle with
yes. I definitely have a story. My mom is deceased, and so she can't hear anything negative about what I might need to say. My dad is still alive, so sorry, Dad, if some of this gets to your ears. I was raised by parents who valued thin bodies above all else, money and thin bodies, and was put on diets probably from the point of, 7 or 8 years old. Even normal periods of growth and development. I look back at pictures of myself and I was perfect.
Yeah.
I was a perfect little kid, perfect adolescent. There was nothing wrong with my body. Yet, my nickname was Friar Tuck. Oh. Yeah. In high school, I was paid to lose weight. Right? Yeah. Bad stuff.
You hear these things and you're like, I remember Weight Watchers.
Yeah,
right?
I went.
Oh my gosh. I wasn't going at 10, standing up in a room full of women, getting on a flipping scale, right?
Clapping or not.
I eat cantaloupe to this day.
Yeah.
My mom took me in high school. We went to a hypnotist. And we went to this group.
I did too in college. Yep, because I put on the freshman 15.
Yeah.
So,
we were just, it's so deeply embedded in us to feel.
Yeah. I remember, it's funny, I was thinking about a situation where I had finished my internship in clinical nutrition in Toronto. And I moved back to Nova Scotia and I was looking for a job. And I stopped in at my parents' cottage and, I sort of spent the day with them. And then I was leaving and going back to the city. And my dad ran up the driveway to catch me. And so I stopped and I rolled the window down and he goes, hey, sis, you know what? I don't think anybody's going to hire you. You're too heavy. Yeah. I was probably, 125 pounds, right? At 5'4", I was perfect. There was absolutely nothing wrong
And
with
you
me.
know,
Nothing
your
wrong with me.
logical brain today, Kim, knows
Yes.
one, your dad clearly had some issues,
Correct.
right?
And still
And
does.
was
Yeah.
putting that stuff on
Yeah.
you. And it's your little girl self
Yep.
is still
yeah.
hearing that
So
message.
here I am going to apply for jobs, right?
Oh
When
my
you
gosh.
really, I don't know, like that's when you need your confidence, like, right. And I think that culture was a shame-based culture. And I think they felt like if you shamed the human, then they would behave better or they would do better things. And we know now.
As a, a prompt to do better or a motivation tool. Shame is never
Nope.
the motivation
Nope.
tool.
And
Yeah.
that's one thing that I work hard on in my practice is
Yeah.
we look at all of that shame-based crap and we decide, hey, did it work for you for the last 40 years?
Right.
Nope. All right. So let's let it go. Let's find those sentences because I firmly believe that whatever story you have about yourself, that is what you will create.
Right.
So
talk
if you
about that more, Kim. You
right?
talk about this a lot.
Yes.
I really appreciate
so,
your
yeah.
views.
So there's just neutral facts. So the neutral fact about me, right? I am a 60-year-old woman. That's it. My birth certificate agrees with my date of birth and my parts agree to my gender, right? So that's the fact. The sentence or the story about that fact determines how I feel. How I feel determines how I show up, how I act, how I dress myself, where I go, how I speak to myself, how I engage. That creates the results of my life, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, right? So you know my story about me. You know what my identity of myself is. I'm a flippin' rock star. And when I'm feeling a little more saucy, I'll put a different word in there, right? And it doesn't matter to me what anybody else thinks about me, but that's how I fundamentally believe and think of myself. And because my job, I feel like, is to be an example of what's possible. So if I'm out there in that space, then I need to actually bring it,
Show up that
right?
way,
I need to
right.
show up. That doesn't mean that I don't have crap on occasion. I sure do. But if my identity is that of a rock star,
Right.
how do I show up?
As a rock star.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the life.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right.
And so I think, where we see, in my practice anyway, where we see this show up.
Reaching for water.
Okay, you can. Where we see this show up, and I think another reason why it's so prevalent in midlife that this is like bubbling to the surface again is because, again, your body's changing sort of against your will. But we don't give ourselves grace for the fact that, like, especially women who are like, going through this without support, the hot flashes, the night sweats, like so you're just not feeling like the brain fog. You don't feel like yourself. You don't have the motivation to do the things that make you feel good and happy and strong in your body. So
Right.
it's a complicated season, but it's also a great time for unlearning and really looking at that. Like when you step out of it and you really dive in and do a little bit of research just about, because you're going to notice, like, you're not going to hear this on a man's podcast. Like you might, you're probably not, right? And so why is this so universally women? Why is it that we are held to the standard of needing to be good looking and in small bodies and whatnot, where I look at like my husband, right? He's always fit. But if he goes through, like, sometimes he goes through these periods, like through like Christmas, where he's like, I'm going to eat all the cookies my mom sent and maybe not go to the gym as much, right? And he'll be like, ha, 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 pat his belly. I gained 10 pounds. And there's no woman I know that's like, oh, haha, look at my little rolls. Like, not one.
No.
Not one. So it's just, when you really step back and look and say, where does society play a role in this? And, it makes you kind of angry because it's
should.
not just other women, but it's like social media is huge. And we may not have had social media years ago, but we had, the picture on TV of Jessica Simpson when they said that she was fat and she was wearing those jeans. No, ma'am, she was not. But that was the era of the low-rise jeans, right? And I think it was early 2000s.
Thank goodness those are.
Gross. Never come back. Never come back.
No.
But, if you notice, what we're seeing now is a return to it.
Yeah.
We are getting back to it. You can see it when you look at celebrities.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call out any particular celebrity, but there's many that you can see every rib.
Yeah.
And you know it's not normal, but this is what you then see the young women model themselves after. And who makes money off of that? Like, let's go real conspiracy here, right?
Yeah.
Because if you love yourself and you admit that you're in your flowy era and you're going to wear your Mrs. Roper romper, it's not going to benefit the companies that have protein powder and creatine and, right,
Diet.
the weight loss scrubs and, things
All the
that,
things. Yeah.
So
I think too
it's so
that
big.
we, women were cultured to believe that their worth was dependent on their appearance,
Oh,
right? We put a
absolutely.
ton of value on appearance and less so on a brain. It's interesting because I think about funny movies and statements and stuff. And My Big Fat Greek Wedding, I don't know if that was one of my favorite
love
movies.
that. Yeah.
And when the character wanted to go back to college and the father says, "Why she leave me? She don't need to go to college. She's smart enough." Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow,
That was a good
I know it was a great statement, right? And they didn't, the mother and stuff. I love the way it played out. But I think we need to be role models as well on making sure that the young women coming up behind us are aware that, your worth
so
is
much more than
yes,
what you look
yes, your brain, your contributions to the world, your kindness, your work ethic, your tenacity, your excitement, all of that is so valuable.
We need to model some of that for our daughters.
Yeah.
And we need to really, but for my daughters, one of the things I had to do was really fess up to the fact that in my, trying to not be what I grew up with, have them not see me on a diet, but they will call me today what I was, an almond mom. Right? An ingredient mom. So I was always eating clean. So yes, I wasn't diet. Yes, I was. It still was. It
In a
still was
package.
it was extreme. It was extreme, right?
Yeah.
I would never have cake or a piece of bread or any of those things. And they saw that. And so I had to do a little bit of ownership of that and really hopefully help them get the message we can do better for each, newer generation.
I was probably somewhere in the middle because, being raised by a dietitian, right?
Oh my gosh, right.
But I tried hard to not, I don't know, not make good or bad,
Yeah.
right? Like, because I saw so much of that polarization
Right.
with food being good and bad. So I did bake. We did have cakes. We did have cookies. We did have all those things. We didn't, I didn't take the McDonald's on a regular basis, but we did go on occasion. So I hopefully when I look back on it, my kids would probably call me an almond mom and an ingredient mom too. But given my profession, I think I did a good job of trying, right, to rein
you're
it in.
a profession that's hard not.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to share something a little personal?
Yeah.
The brownies.
Oh, okay.
That to me, I think speaks to that whole relationship
Okay.
with food and.
So when I was growing up, again, as I said, my parents were very concerned about being thin. And my mother used to make the most fabulous brownies. Like they were called chewy brownies and they were absolutely spectacular. And they would give us one piece with a dessert. And then my mother would take the rest of them and lock them up in my dad's briefcase. He had one of those square, the old briefcases.
Wow.
And I would find the briefcase and I would find either a bobby pin or a safety pin and I would pick the lock and open it up and take all the brownies and scoop them up and throw them down the garbage disposal and turn it on. Which is pretty disordered when you think about it. When I think back as an adult, wow, that was so weird. I think it was a profound sense of fear. The message that we got was that we had no ability to self-control and that control had to be taken away and put into the artificial hands of a locked briefcase, right? That we had no control. And because I was so profoundly worried that if I couldn't control myself and I would eat 10 of them and become massively obese, which, right, we all know that it's not true, but in your 10-year-old brain, you can't judge that. So, and I remember as, time went on, probably my early 20s, I remember making cookies one time and I was living with my now husband and his roommate. And I made a nice big batch of chocolate chip cookies and I froze a bunch of them and like months went by and the cookies were still there. And I had this reality, like, I don't have a problem with moderation with cookies. Like, this is not an issue for me.
That was old programming.
I was old programming. I can make whatever I like and have whatever I want of it because I can and I choose to, or I choose not to. So it was this very moment of clarity. And I think that's when I went into raising my own kids, I wanted them to know that there were good cookies there. And personally, I'd rather have them, my homemade ones, than a package. Like I was sort of like not wanting to bring the packages home, right? And I like baking, to be honest. But I wanted them to know that they could choose to have them as they wanted. There was no like rules. They weren't going to be locked up. I would freeze them just so they would stay fresh. So you're going to have to microwave it or whatever. So maybe that was bothersome to them. I don't know. But I guess the point is that there is old programming that we see, and we have to address it and let it go.
Yeah.
It no longer serves us.
No. And I think like once you recognize it, that's when you can say, I acknowledge this, I see this, this isn't a pattern that serves me.
Yeah.
How do you help women move forward, particularly with the body image stuff? How do you encourage a woman to heal? Because again, these women are coming to you and they've had decades of this programming.
It depends on where they are in their journey. So some women are unaware of how much negative narrative they have. Yeah. Like I know just by their aura, right? But so we'll do kind of an inventory study. Like I just literally want them to take a couple of days and just go, 1, that's 2, like just to sort of take a note of how much of their day, how much of their thoughts are negative narrative. Right. And that negative narrative, to define it, is something that you would never say to your best friend or your grandmother or your great aunt, right? So if you can't say it to them, you have no business saying it to yourself. So sometimes we start that way. And that awakening or that awareness, and I do talk about the fact that we have a file drawer. Yeah, there's no space for good stuff if it's filled with garbage, right? And then if there are women that are sort of already aware of that, like they're like, this has to stop. Like I know how much I'm doing it. I'm trying not to let it leak out to my family, but it does. Like I really need to stop. Then I do the whole stop. Like, all right, from this moment forward, there is no negative narrative, period, end, stop, none. Like this is, and some women really are good with that. It's, it's catching yourself when it happens. Some women that feels too big, like how in the world am I going to stop doing that? So what I will encourage them to do is schedule a time during the day when they can do all the negative narrative they like. So 1 o'clock to 1:15, have at it. All the crap. You're an idiot.
The bitch time.
Yes, it's let the bitch out. Exactly. I guess we should be careful about that, but whatever. Like let the mean girl out and let her have her way. Let her say it all, but when the 15 minutes is up, it's over. So I think it has to be, I think we can't just hope that it'll go away, wish that we'd stop. I think we have to take an active role in taking charge of what happens in our brain.
Well, okay, on that note, I want to go back in time to when we met and we were talking about this.
I made you cry?
Yeah. Yes, you did. You made me cry in a wonderful way. Yeah. You said to me, we have the ability to change what our brain looks for. And so, and you gave the analogy of if you said, today I'm going to notice every heart.
Yes.
You're going to find every single rock that's like a heart, and your coffee creamer looks like heart, and all those things. And so you said, start your day telling your brain what it is you're going to look for.
Yeah.
And so you told me that, and this is a mantra I do. Brain, no negative or self-deprecating thoughts, body positivity, confidence. We're going to have a beautiful day. And it's like you start, So it's like literally like, I haven't had a sip of coffee. That's what I start with. And so instead of looking for, the negative, you're training your brain to kind of be more aware.
We have the outer layer of our brain. It looks like a hairnet. And I love there's like visuals of it, and it's like bzz, 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 it's all like active and stuff. It's very cool. I love it. And it's the ERS, endoreticularis system. Sorry. Anyways, its job is to look for facts in the world, data, to make true what you're saying. So if you are saying, oh my God, you look so fat today, these clothes look horrible, your brain sees, oh, okay, Kim wants me to find all the data to make that true.
That.
Do you want that? No, right? It applies to all different things. If you're annoyed with your kid, same thing, right? So our brain is a very powerful tool left to its own unconscious toddler with a knife behavior, right, can run amok. But to your point, if we give it a deliberate job today, and I love that. Can you repeat that? The narrative?
Brain, no negative or self-deprecating thoughts, body positivity, confidence. We're going to have a beautiful, wonderful day.
I love that. So you are telling your brain exactly what to do. And that means that it will find data to
support that.
make that actually your result, which is incredible.
Well, thank you for that.
You're
And
very welcome.
so there are real concrete ways. One of the things that I just want to bring up as a side note is that, and I recommend this a lot in my practice, we're actually going to have an EMDR therapist come on and talk. EMDR therapy is a specific type of therapy that gets at old stuff that hasn't been processed, in a nutshell. So because you can be sitting here today and you know the very truth in front of you and your brain is aware, but if what's running the show is an old narrative, it's old stuff that doesn't belong there anymore, sometimes when you do that sort of reprocessing, it's not the automatic go-to anymore. It's not old nervous system stuff. If you find that you're like, okay, I've done the coaching, I'm trying this thing, I'm saying my mantra in the morning, and that still takes up so much room in my brain, commit to yourself to doing something like that to really dive in and
it'd be great.
shred some of those old beliefs that don't deserve room at the table today.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm so glad that we're going to do a session on EMDR. I think it's really important.
think
Both
it's
of us
super
have done it,
important.
and it can be super helpful. So back to the sort of women in midlife. And we talked a little bit about this before, like the symptoms of hot flashes, night sweats, lack of libido. How does all of that in your practice impact women's sense of self? And how do you treat that?
So, every single person that comes in is in a different space. They're in a different place of readiness. They're in a different place of discomfort. So I kind of meet women where they are, and I try to get them to to kind of like, let's turn off the shame. Let's turn on a whole bunch of grace. And then if they're candidates for it, like, let's just put out some fires, literally and figuratively, and get you to where you're feeling like a human being and you are sleeping, whether that's hormone or non-hormone. Because then when you are, you might have the energy to go for that walk in the morning or lift a weight or meal prep. And the more, I feel like the more as women we pour into ourselves in that way and show up for ourselves, the more we value ourselves. So it's just showing ourselves love, like we do to everybody else in our lives. So if I have somebody who comes in and she's like, listen, I don't have time. I hear them. I don't have time. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to write. I'm like, why? You are not showing up for yourself at all. And which means that you're giving away all of yourself to everybody else. Yeah. And we have to look at that and figure out how to stop the bleed. It's like somewhere. And even just small things add up over time, and they can make a huge difference on how a woman feels about herself.
I was thinking about a statement you made one time, something about showing up, like, if you're not able to do your own life, then you're not. Oh, I
showing up in your own life.
Yeah, show up
if
in
you
your own
don't
life.
Fit into your own life.
Thank you.
That's
That's it.
is.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, and that's
yeah.
I'll come right out and say that.
Yeah.
You do not fit into your life. That is a big problem.
It's not your life. I mean? You're actually not living your life.
Like,
you're
what's
living...
your self-care? I go to the gym. Okay, I go to the gym too. That is a human function that my body needs. It's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just the more, and I'm gentle about that. And when somebody's underwater, right, you can't be like, you know what you should do is add all your protein, and you should lift heavy, and you should eat creatine.
Yeah.
And, they just need literally like, let me take your hands and I'll pull you out of the water. And we'll start and we'll do one thing at a time. And then more gently over time is where I say, now that you're feeling a little bit better, can we look at your life a little bit, take a step out of it and figure out how to fit you back in there a little bit?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? When you're not fitting into your life. Go ahead.
Well, this was a good one.
Yeah.
This was a good one. I feel like we could talk about this for days.
Yeah.
And we probably will come back.
Continue.
Yeah, and continue. But I am so thankful to have this space to sit with you, Kim, and with all the ladies who are listening. What we want you to know is that we show up here as, experts in caring for women in midlife. We also show up here as human women, who are living our own lives too in the struggle with you. So we appreciate the share and the love and the support. So do something nice for yourself. Maybe watch this one more time, write down my little mantra and try it out.
I love it.
Too.
Yeah. And share it with your friends. If you know someone else that's struggling with their sense of self, share it with them. A secret, whatever, a pain shared is a pain halved. Yeah. I'll just put it up there.
Thank you, ladies. We will see you soon.
Thanks for spending time with Vicki and I today on Fated to Fabulous, where midlife is just the beginning of your boldest chapter yet. If you got something out of today's episode, we'd love it if you'd share it with a friend and leave a review. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking for more support, inspiration, or sisterhood, come join us at fatedtofabulous.biz, because you were never meant to do midlife alone. Until next time, stay fabulous.